From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 Show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 Show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
All right, yes, welcome in to the 301 Show, episode 4. Been doing this for about a month now. Today we got some great talkers here. An absolutely massive NFC North battle this upcoming Sunday between the Lions and the Vikings. Well, we had one of the biggest goals in franchise history for the Wild this past week. We'll get to all of that and more coming up here on the 301 Show. All right, let's start in the Wolves' den here. So a couple things I want to talk about. I want to talk about two players, and then we will get into some predictions. Obviously, the Wolves start or wrapping up the preseason right now. The regular season starts on Tuesday against the Lakers in LA. But the two players I want to talk about, first one is Dante DiVincenzo. And I want to talk a little bit about what he got into in his return to Madison Square Garden, um, and why I think that is a good thing for the Timberwolves. So he was at the free throw line against the Knicks, and he said, quote, I should say this is alleged and from reports coming out from what was assumed to have been said through lip reading and people that may have been close enough to hear, but what people think he said, what was most likely said, was that's what happens when they let you run the show. He was talking to the Knicks um assistant coach, one of the Knicks assistant coaches, and then he was right in the middle of a scuttlebug after the game, after the Knicks beat the Timberwolves. And he was right in the middle of it. Now, I absolutely love this attitude because it is similar to the uh, Timberwolves fans might not like this when I make this comparison, but hear me out, hear me out. It reminds me a little bit of Draymond Green without the kind of over the topness of it. He knows when to rein it in. Like he won't he won't draw or he won't commit a foul because of it. And he but he still plays on the edge there, like with an edge, and tries to get under the skin of the opposing team while providing some very good play on top of that. So he's not gonna, pull a Draymond Green and choke out an opponent on the other team. Ironically, Draymond choked out Rudy Gobert against the Timberwolves, and Dante DiVincenzo, I don't think would do that. But he is playing with this edge that allows him to get underneath the skin of the opposing team and gets inside their head that and then allows the Wolves to have some sort of mental advantage there, because the opposing team is thrown off their game. All right, now the second player I want to talk about is Anthony Edwards, and there's a couple things I want to talk about. He had a couple of quotes, and then I want to talk about where he falls in some of these top 100 rankings that are coming out now before this season starting. So let's talk about the rankings first, and then I want to get into the quotes at the end. So the top 100 rankings, there were 3 that I have seen that have that are from more reputable sources, the um uh, uh guys on the inside the NBA, the TNT crew inside the NBA, they're putting out their top 50 players, and they have 21 through 50 out right now. We will look at those when the top 20 is completed. But for right now, there is CBS, ESPN, and The Ringer. The Ringer had Anthony Edwards at number 11, while both CBS and ESPN had Anthony Edwards number 10. And he is up there with, you know, the vets that are, you know, maybe post peak and on their way back down, like LeBron and Steph. You could maybe throw AD in there. AD is in a weird position where he's kind of in between right now. Um, like he's not as old as Steph and LeBron are, but he's not as young as some of the other guys on this list. Like the other guys on these lists are Luka and Shea and Jokic, and so AD kind of falls right in the middle of those two. But those are the players that are ahead of Anthony Edwards right now on these lists, and those are the bona fide superstars in this league. So Anthony Edwards is amongst superstars right now. He is finally getting the recognition that Timberwolves fans know he deserves. He deserves all of the recognition from the national media and um, all that comes with that too. And unfortunately for Wolves fans, that's gonna come with from the national media. It's gonna come with them saying like, "Hey, we got to get you out of Minnesota and get you to a big market here," even though, you know, the Twin Cities area is a top 15 market in the U.S. And he has, you know, he was in the, forget what the name of it is, the Adam Sandler movie, basketball movie. Um, he was in that. Like he's doing all of these things that he can get in L.A. and New York or Boston. And in my mind, Anthony Edwards wants to be the guy somewhere, not just one of many greats on a team, but like I think he would rather be the first guy to bring a championship to a team, not a guy in the long line of like Laker greats that brought, you know, 17 championships to the Lakers. Um so I think he is a top 10 player, and he will be a top 10 player for the Timberwolves for years to come here. So the two quotes I do want to talk about real quick come from the Netflix documentary, the Starting Five. So credit to them for getting these two quotes. The first one is, I do not I do not look up to anybody in the league right now currently. Not at all. Not in the slightest. And then the second quote is, yeah, I want to cook LeBron one on one. Like who doesn't? You say you don't. If you say you don't want to compete. Those two quotes right there sum up Anthony Edwards. He wants to win. He wants to be the very best player in the league. And I think he thinks he is the best player in the league. And I absolutely, when was the last time the Timberwolves had like KG? I was a lot and KG might not even had this attitude. Like a guy that had the attitude and had this attitude and the skill to back it up. The only other guy that could possibly be in Timberwolves history is Kevin Garnett. Again, I don't even know if he had this attitude. But he's like he's basically saying I am the best player in the league. But in the second quote, he's saying I want to compete with the best. I want to get even better than the best. He's saying I know I'm great, but I'm going to keep working hard to get even better. Like, that is the perfect combination out of an athlete is the genetic talent and the hard work. Absolute perfect combination. So I think Timberwolves fans are in for greatness here to come. So let's get into the predictions here for the Timberwolves and the Lynx, the Wolves Den. So we did have one come off the board last week. It was incorrect. I said the Minnesota Lynx will beat the New York Liberty in 4 games exactly. It is now mathematically impossible for them to win in 4 games. It will, if they do win, it will be in 5 games. So that one is incorrect. 0 for 1 on the year in the Wolves Den on predictions. So let's get the next 3 predictions here for the Wolves Den. And just pulling it up right here. So for my first prediction, we'll stick with the Lynx. I'm going to double down on this prediction I had last week and try to get it back here. The Lynx will win the WNBA championship this year. They will win the next 2 games and hang another banner in Target Center. So they will win the WNBA championship over the New York Liberty this year. Over to the Wolves. I have a Wolves season opener prediction. The Wolves will beat the Lakers in the season opener in LA. So the Wolves win in any fashion, regulation or overtime. The Wolves will beat the Lakers. And then lastly, I want to end with an Ant prediction. Anthony Edwards will have a 60-plus point game in the regular season, and he will have a 50-plus point game in the playoffs. So that's kind of a 3-item parlay there is he will have a 60-plus pointer, the Timberwolves will make the playoffs, and he will have a 50-plus point game in the playoffs. I will be including the play-in rounds for this, his 50-plus point game. Those will count. If he has one in one of those games, that part will be marked correct for that. All right, now let's go over to our target field talkers. This segment is probably gonna be the shortest of the week because there's not too much news coming out of the Twins this week. There was last week, obviously, with the Twins being put up for sale and Twins TV coming out. But this week we do have a little bit of news. A couple of Twins players got nominated for Gold Gloves. The first one was Carlos Santana at the first base position. He is nominated with Baltimore's Ryan Mountcastle and Texas's Nathaniel Lowe. So Santana, Mountcastle, and Lowe are the 3 nominees at first base. And if Santana should win this one. He was the best defensive first baseman, maybe in all of baseball this year. So, and the Gold Glove is just the American League Gold Glove. So that takes half of the competition out, because he's not going up against the National League Gold Glove Award finalists. And then at the utility fielder position, which I am very glad they have, because some guys don't just play one position. Like this guy I'm going to announce here is Willie Castro. He is the nominee for the Twins with Dubon for Houston and Dylan Moore for Seattle. So Castro, Dubon, and Moore are the 3 nominees in the utility position group. I'm not entirely sure if Castro's going to win that one, but everyone here in Twins territory will be rooting for him, obviously. He was one of those guys that I really hope the Twins bring back for next year. He is up for arbitration. He's one of the guys up for arbitration this year, and I really hope they do bring him back. Whoever the new owners are, I hope they are able to see his value and will be willing to actually pay it. So that is kind of all I have here for the Twins on the news side. So let's get into some predictions here. There was nothing that came off the board here last week for the Twins. Obviously, it was a slow week. I'm assuming it's going to be slow here until until free agency starts. But I do have 3 more predictions here for the Twins. So those 3 predictions are Royce Lewis in this upcoming season in 2025. Royce Lewis will play at least 100 games, 100 regular season games, and he will hit at least 30 home runs in the regular season. So both of those things, I think he stays healthy this year, and if he stays healthy, he will have a fantastic year, I believe. So that is my first prediction for the Twins. My second prediction is that in the first series of the 2025 regular season, we will see these starting pitchers in this order. So the 3 starters for the first 3 games. I'm going to assume that the first series is a 3-game series. So I'll just say the first 3 games of the series, we will see these 3 pitchers in this specific order. So I think these are the 3, or that order will be Pablo Lopez, Bailey Ober, and Joe Ryan. So I think those are the 3 pitchers that are most likely to be the first 3 starters for the Twins, assuming they bring back both Bailey Ober and Joe Ryan. So that might be a bit of a question mark there, but if they do, those 3 should be the 3 you see first, but it will be in that specific order. Pablo, Ober, and Joe Ryan. And then final prediction here for the Twins on this Thursday. Ryan Jeffers will hit the first home run of the 2025 regular season for the Twins. So he will be the first one to go yard for the Twins. Doesn't matter if their pitchers give up a home run, but a player in a Twins uniform, the first home run will go to Ryan Jeffers. All right, now we're heading over to the Rinkside Rundown. Where we've got a couple of major things here for the Wild. So they played their first 4 games of the season between last week's episode being released and now. They had 2 wins, 0 regulation losses, and 2 overtime or shootout losses, which is good for 6 points. They beat Columbus in the home opener 3-2. They lost in a shootout to Seattle 5-4. They lost in overtime in Winnipeg 2-1. And then they beat St. Louis in St. Louis 4-1 a couple days ago. And a couple of things I want to talk about here. From this past week, there's a couple players I want to talk about specifically. First one is Matt Boldy. He has played 4 games. He has 2 goals, 3 assists for 5 points. He's also a +1 on the year. And he is also averaging 20 minutes and 41 seconds of ice time per night. So that is absolutely massive to me because his career average is 17 minutes and 59 seconds. So John Hines is absolutely trusting Matt Boldy a lot more. And I think that gives him, a lot more confidence to go out and do what he's been doing this season so far. Now, it definitely helps that he's playing on, you know, the top line of the top two lines on any given night, and he's playing with the other best players on the Wild. So he's playing with, Kaprizov and Zuccarello. He's playing with Eriksson Ek and, Foligno and Hartman, and he's playing with those top players. Mostly, Zuccarello and Kaprizov, but he has gained the trust enough of John Hines and this coaching staff to the point where um his abilities are being shown, and I absolutely love that. So I yeah, just keep it up, Matt Boldy. Coaching staff keep giving him playing time like that, and I think this might be his best season so far. Like we might see the best. We might see career numbers this season for one Matt Boldy. Second I want to talk about is Brock Faber. Not necessarily because of any of the stats he's put up. He doesn't have a goal. He has 2 assists in 4 games. He is a +3, which again, take what you will, plus minuses. Like any singular stat in hockey or in any sport, it does have its flaws. But you still like to see the +3. But the big one for me is he is sitting at 26 minutes and 2 seconds of ice time per game. So he, what is he, 22 years old, I think? He's 22. So as a 22-year-old, again, he is like I said with Matt Boldy, he is being trusted to play top pairing minutes for a team that has a lot of good defensemen on it. And he's being trusted to like take some of those minutes that when Spurgeon gets hurt and these other players get hurt, they're relying on a 22-year-old, and it's working. He's rewarding the coaching staff's instincts to trust him, and therefore he's gaining more trust from the coaching staff to go out and do what he needs to do to succeed in the NHL. So that to me is the most impressive stat for Brock Faber, is just how much ice time he is getting on average per night. So the last guy I want to talk about is the Gus Bus. Obviously, this was, you know, one of the most impressive goals that we have seen in Wild history. The goalie goal. Just somehow the goalie is able to get the puck and just dump it all the way down the ice. But I think there's also a contender for most impressive goal in Wild history in the same game. We'll get to that in just a second. But I think what is also impressive with Philip Gustafsson so far isn't the fact that he scored a goal. It's the rest of his stats. He has 2 wins and 1 overtime loss. The 1 overtime loss was the loss in Winnipeg, where they lost 2-1. He had 30-something shots on him. So he was getting absolutely peppered in that game. It still only let up 2 goals. It took overtime to get to the 2 goals. And his goals against average this year is 1.66. His save percentage is 0.948%. So he is in early, way too early, way too early in the season talks to be considered for the Vezina trophy right now. But again, I don't think that these statistics are fully sustainable over the course of an 82 game season, or 50 to 60, whatever he actually plays. But again, that is a very good sign to start the season here for the Wild. and for Philip Gustafson specifically. And what I think, I'd hinted at it, what I think was actually one of the most impressive goals that I've seen the Wild have was the Lauko goal, the second goal of the game in St. Louis, where he, they clear it out to the neutral zone, and he is able just turns on the Jets and gets around the Jets defenseman that was standing there and goes in almost on a one on. It was a one on half. Like the defenseman was like kind of right at him, and then he just goes bar down with it and scores on Binnington, and he scored a shorthanded goal on a breakaway and put the Wild up 2-0 at the time, 2-0, and it was one of the most impressive efforts I have seen on a singular goal I think in a very long time for this Wild team. Like, so that is absolutely exciting to see. That is so exciting to see from this Wild team. So, congratulations to Lauko there on scoring that goal. There's two more things I want to go over here. First is the look ahead to this upcoming week, the games this upcoming week, and then I want to go over some team rankings here, like I do with the Vikings. I'll do it for the Twins and the Timberwolves too when they actually are playing regular season games. But my look ahead for this week, so they play in Columbus on Saturday, and their last loss in regulation against the Blue Jackets, they lost 4-2 on November 29th, 2018. They are 8-0-2 in their last 10 games against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So that is a very good sign for the Wild, but again, that also makes this game feel more like a trap game for the Wild, where they have to, keep playing as a team like they've been playing in the first 4 games this year. Like has it been perfect? No, but I think they have been playing overall very well. So I think they need to keep going at this pace and don't take the Blue Jackets too lightly, because anybody can beat anybody on any given night. So then they play the second game this upcoming week is Tuesday. They play in Florida. They play at Florida, and Florida is one of those teams that has been pretty good for the last few years. They won the Stanley Cup last year, and then they were in the Stanley Cup 2 years ago, lost to the Golden Knights, and then the year before that they won the President's Trophy. So they have been arguably the best team over the last 3 years. So again, this will be a very good test here for the Wild, as I think they have the most well-rounded team that the Wild have played all year. I think the Jets have the best goaltending that they've played all year, but not. The Jets are the best team that they have played thus far, but I think the Panthers will top that when the Wild go play in Florida. So yeah, that's they can't look past Columbus because they know they have Florida coming up, and then they again have to just keep playing as a team. It's nice that they have a couple days off in between, but they got to keep playing as a team and keep the pedal to the metal here to get a win in both of those games. So now it's going on to the team rankings. So there is 4 stats here I want to go over, and they are some of the more basic stats in hockey, but again, I do think they paint a picture here, a pretty good picture of how the Wild have been doing so far this year. So goals for, they're sitting at 3 goals for per game. That is tied for 19th in the entire NHL. So they are, not at the bottom third, but pretty darn close to the bottom third of the league in goals for. So they got to start figuring out their um, goal scoring in that sense. And then goals against per game, they are uh, they are sitting at 2.25 goals against per game, and that is 6th in the entire NHL. So they were kind of, reverting back to the pre-Kaprizov days where they were very much just more of a defensive team than an offensive team. So that is something I would like to see more of this year, is just them scoring more. And I do think Boldy playing with Kaprizov definitely helps their chances there to get more more chances at scoring goals. So I do think that will help over time, but I want to see that second line, the Rossi and Eriksson Ek line. I want to see um get start getting going a little bit here. Um then last two I have is the power play and the penalty kill. The power play is actually sitting at 30.8%, just tied for 6th in the entire NHL. And then the penalty kill, they're sitting at 66.7%, which is tied for 26th in the entire NHL. So they are with that shows, and again, we're only 4 games in, so it's out of an 82 game season, so it is a smaller sample size. But what that shows me is they are very good scoring when they have the man advantage, and not so good at scoring 5-on-5. If they're tied for 6th on the power play, but then 19th, tied for 19th overall in the overall goals for, they are relying a little bit too much on the power play. And then defensively, they really need to clean up the penalty kill, but they are fantastic. They're fantastic defensively playing 5-on-5. So the penalty kill scares me with them allowing goals, and then the 5-on-5 scares me with them like scoring goals. So yeah, there is some um stuff to be worked on there, and I'm sure the Wild's coaching staff is looking at that too. Sure, they're seeing the same numbers we are, probably more numbers, more in-depth numbers. So let's hope they can watch some film here over the next couple days before Columbus and get those things, at least start to get those things straightened out before this weekend and then next week too. So for the predictions for this week, had 2 come off the board. We'll start with the bad. I said that the Wild would win in overtime specifically. They did not win in overtime. They won, but again, not specifically in overtime, so that one was incorrect. And then the one I did get correct was that Matt Boldy would score the first goal of the regular season for the Minnesota Wild. So we did go 1-1 last week. Still have one prediction on the board from last week for the Wild. That was that month-long prediction. But we've got 3 new predictions for this week for our Rinkside Rundown. The first one is that the Wild will collect at least 2 points in the standings between now and next week's episode. So they can go, win one game, lose the other one, lose both games in overtime or a shootout. And that this one will be correct. But out of their next 4 possible points, they will get at least 50% of them. Second prediction is that although he only has one goal right now, he's tied with Philip Gustafsson. Kirill Kaprizov will score 50-plus goals this season, which, again, I think if he stays healthy, is very, very doable for Kirill this year. And last prediction, we're going to go over to the PWHL and the Minnesota Frost. And I am saying that Matty Rooney will win the PWHL Goalie of the Year award this season. So I think she will get more starts, and I think she will anchor this very good goaltending tandem between Nicole Hensley and Matty Rooney. But I think more of the nods will go to Rooney, and that she will be the one to win best goalie of the year come next offseason for the PWHL. Now, to end this episode, we will end with our Nordic report. Again, two things to go over. First is the Vikings made a trade. The second, we will look ahead to this week's matchup against the Lions. No team rankings this week, as I don't really want to go over changes that the Vikings have no control over. So we will look at those again next week. But the Vikings made a trade this past week. Cam Akers is coming back to the Vikings. The Vikings do receive Cam Akers and a conditional 2026 seventh round pick. And they will give the Texans a conditional 2026 sixth round pick. So Texans are moving up one round. Vikings are getting Cam Akers back. So that we can get into that a little bit more here. I will actually bring that back up in just a moment. Just know that that's what is going down for the Vikings this past week. So now let's look ahead at this massive matchup here. This is the biggest matchup of the week for sure. Maybe the biggest matchup of the year so far. Maybe you could say the Chiefs and Ravens in week one were a bigger matchup. But again, we were still in opening week that week, so we didn't know how massive it actually ended up being. Whereas these two teams, the Lions are 4-1, the Vikings are 5-0, and this is the Vikings' second NFC North matchup of the year. So yeah, they are hoping to get off to a 2-0 start in the division. Want to go over the injury reports for both teams. So obviously Aiden Hutchinson is completely out. He's out for the season for the Lions. Thoughts and prayers to Aiden Hutchinson. Horrific leg injury there last week. But then the Wednesday injury report, there's a couple of interesting things here for the Lions. Is both Dan Skipper and Frank Ragnow were both non-participants at the Wednesday practice. And there was, when you don't practice, when you have zero participation on the Wednesday practice before the game, that's not unheard of that they come back and play in the game, but it is a lot less likely than even if they are limited at the Wednesday practice. So those two being out should be concern for, more of a concern for Lions fans. And yeah, because those are two massive pieces of their offensive line. Now, the Vikings, on the other hand, those are the two big pieces there on the Lions injury report. Now, the Vikings had a lot more people on their injury report, and a lot of big names here, and some of this really does concern me for this upcoming game here against the Lions. We'll start with the good news. Good news is both Josh Oliver and Theo Jackson, the tight end and the safety, were full participants at practice. So they do have some of those depth pieces there. One, both one on offense and one on defense. So they will have some depth there at those positions. Now, limited at practice, we have Dalton Reisner and TJ Hawkinson. Both of those guys have not played this year, so we will see if they actually get some playing time this upcoming season, or excuse me, not this upcoming season, this upcoming week at the Lions. But the absolute what is not it's very scary looking for the Vikings here is defensive lineman Harrison Phillips, running back Aaron Jones, outside linebacker Patrick Jones Jr., cornerback Caleb Evans, and linebacker Blake Cashman did not participate in Wednesday's practice. So those 5 guys are all trending to be out on Sunday. That's not a guarantee. They might, a couple of them might be in, a couple of them might be out, but all of them are not coming or did not participate on Wednesday. So this is where I think Cam Akers comes into play is they knew that Aaron Jones was not going to be playing here on this Sunday for the Wolves. So I think they were just trying to get somebody to help out Ty Chandler here and not have him be the only halfback in the room and rest Aaron Jones for the Thursday night game. Because I think what they're going to do is look at the Thursday night game and be like, we want some guys to not be hurt or be fully rested for the Thursday night game. So let's hold some of these guys out of Sunday's game against the Lions, and Dan Campbell is one of the bigger psychopath coaches in the NFL and is more of a wear and tear you down type of coach. And so I think they're looking at, maybe a TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, Blake Cashman, and just saying, hey, let's take it easy a little bit here. We're gonna sit you one more week if you're TJ Hawkinson, or just we're gonna hold you out of this game against the Lions, and then we're gonna have the full team ready and rearing to go, traveling to LA to take on the Rams on Thursday night of Week 8. So I think this could be a strategy here by the Vikings front office and coaching staff, or it could just be these guys are actually hurt. And I am not 100% sure one way or the other at this point. So those are the injury reports for this upcoming week. The matchup I am most excited for this week isn't the Vikings versus the Lions. It is the Lions offense versus the Vikings defense. I want to see, Dan Campbell versus Brian Flores is basically the matchup I am most excited for, because both of these guys are coming up with trick plays for their side of the ball. And like Dan Campbell's throwing to, seems like every offensive lineman at least once a game. And, Brian Flores is looking like he's going to rush 10 of the 11 guys on defense, and then 5 of them drop back into pass coverage. And so I am very excited to see what this matchup this weekend looks like. Okay. So let's move on to predictions here. Had nothing come off the board for the Vikings. And so we will go and do our predictions for this week here. I'm going to say that the Lions beat the Vikings this Sunday and hand the Vikings their first loss of the year. But yeah, I do think it's first of all, the Vikings are not going 17-0. Their first loss of the year is bound to happen. So I want to see it happen earlier so I know that they can overcome adversity. So I think it's coming this weekend against the Lions. Second prediction, I think the Vikings will go exactly 1-1 against the Lions and the Rams. So regardless of my prediction about the Lions beating the Vikings this Sunday, if the Vikings win this weekend and then lose to the Rams, this one comes true. Now, both of them can come true if the Lions win this Sunday and then the Vikings beat the Rams. So either way, no matter which game the Vikings win, they will win one of the Lions or the Rams games and then lose the other one. My final prediction here is that J.J. McCarthy will sound the Gallagher horn at some point before playing his first NFL non-preseason game. So I think that'll be this year, but before he will sound it before he actually steps onto the field in a game that actually matters for the Vikings. So he will be up there. I don't want to predict whether he'll be shirtless like Kirk Cousins was, but again, Kirk Cousins was sounded it last year after suffering a season-ending injury. So the Vikings are open to it. And I think that the Vikings that would be like the Vikings see the benefit of that. So I think that they will let him sound the horn before a game this season. All right. Again, thank you for tuning in this week. Do very much appreciate each and every one of you that tune in, especially those who tune in each and every week. Let me know down in the comment section if there's anything you guys would like to see next week. But yeah, thank you for joining this week. Hope you join again next week. And yeah, we will see you next week.